Welcome to 101, the interview with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett. I'm Lorna Virgili. Sir, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How have you been since the last time we met last month?
Quite busy.
I suppose, of course. Let's get started real quick. Let's talk about the new carry-out bag law that is going to be implemented just a couple months from now, on January 1st, 2012 in Montgomery County. Tell us specifically what kind of retailer stores does this law apply to?
Well, basically all of them except for some of the carry-out stores that we have in the county. What the bill actually requires us to do in Montgomery County, that is for those who are utilizing bags, paper and plastic bags in the county, and you go to the checkout line, if you do not have a reusable bag, you do not bring a bag in, then you will be charged 5 cents per bag. 5 cents, not 5% of your grocery shopping now. Make sure people understand that. 5 cents per bag. Now, we do not want to collect the 5 cents. We would encourage and hope that people will bring the bags themselves into the store so that you can avoid that. Believe it or not, we have good participation already in Montgomery County from a number of people who, in fact, are environmentally sensitive. Now, why are we doing this? First of all, the county pays over $3+ million in cleanup of paper and plastic around the county. Secondly, it is a detriment to our watershed. The paper, the plastics are in the streams and our watersheds and create some environmental challenges for us. Thirdly, we have the bag tax already in the District of Columbia, and they've had extremely good results with it as well. So we will comprehensively do it in Montgomery County. It will affect all retailers, the large retailers, primarily the grocery stores and the large chain stores that you would see. And we hope that people will understand it, become familiar with it, get a bag. If you do not have a bag, we will provide a bag for you. In fact, we have bags similar to this. You'll see a number of promotions over the next few months or so, telling you where you can pick up a bag and encouraging you to take this bag, to put it in your car. Some we hope to have even smaller that you can put in your purse, so that as you go to the store, you will have the bag and you can put your groceries therein. It's important for us to do this, and I'm confident that the citizens of Montgomery County will respond favorably to this request.
Now, we're talking that when you go shop, do your weekly shopping, supermarket, you're going to pay 5 cents per bag.
Not 5%, 5 cents.
Not 5% of your total bill, but 5
right.
cents per bag.
Right.
Now, out of those 5 cents, how much and how is the county going to collect from the retailers?
Well, the retailers will submit to us when they get a threshold of $100, so that they're not sending in every $5, $10 when they achieve that. So they were reporting in periodically at whatever level of time they get to that $100. At that point in time, they will keep 4 cents, they will submit to the county 4 cents of that amount, and they will keep 1 cent. Now, we do not anticipate that this will be a money generator for us. I think it's less than $1 million overall for the county.
How much did you say?
Less than $1 million.
Less than $1 million.
Keep in mind that our budget in the county is $4.5 billion, so it's not designed as a money maker for the county. In fact, we will take that money, reproduce, and get additional bags to circulate. The advertisements that we will send around the community advertising what this law is for. And if there's anything left over, it will go back into the Water Quality Protection Fund. So it's not designed in any form or fashion to be a revenue generator for the county. And as we go through this process, it is my belief that over a period of time, even that $1 million will be reduced even further.
Now, the funds are going to be utilized for environmental programs within the county,
and
correct?
the purchase of the bags.
Of the bags
The county's already advanced it out of the Water Quality Protection Fund. The bags, we've already ordered them. So it's anticipated that whatever monies we get back, we will replenish the fund for the bags that we're distributing to the residents of Montgomery County.
How effective has this been in the District of Columbia, for example?
We found great success in the district, and one of the things that I looked at when I suggested this model to our county council were the results of what they've achieved in the District of Columbia. They've had very good results. Their streams are better and people are complying. They have a very high compliance rate now. Clearly, you go through the first weeks or two, people are transitioning, and this law goes into effect right after the holidays. So you get in the circulars, you receive the information about the bag law. There may be some missteps in the first day or two, so we have to remind people again that the law is in effect January the 1st. If you don't have a bag, we'll give the bag to you. All we want you to do is to bring that bag in when you go do your grocery shopping.
And it's important that the residents also know that you don't have to use a reusable bag. It could be just about any bag that you can bring to the supermarket, correct?
Yes, but you must bring the bag, because if you go to the checkout line without a bag, you will be charged. 5 cents.
5 cents, yes. Not 5% of your total bill.
That's right.
All right. There's going to be some exceptions to the law itself. For instance, if you go to the pharmacy and you get a paper bag for medications, you don't pay there, do you?
That's right. No, you don't pay for that
okay.
at the pharmacy.
So there are going to be some bags that you're actually are going to be charged the 5 cents.
That's correct. Now, the key to that would be the merchants, because the merchants, we've already started working with them to explain to them who should be charged and why. And so if you don't receive the charge, then you know automatically that you don't have to bring the bag, certainly at the pharmacy. And then you go to the McDonald's and some of the fast food carryout with the paper, they do not have to utilize it as well.
And as a consumer, I'm going to see the charge in my receipt. Is that how it's going to happen?
Yes, you'll see, hopefully on your bill, you'll see that 5 cents, not 5%, but 5 cents on there. And in average, I think most people utilize 5 or 6 bags per shopping trip. So if you total the number of bags per shopping trip, the maximum that you may be charged in a weekly shopping trip would be 25 or 30 cents, not percent, 25 or 30 cents. That is, if you bring no bag in and you completely ignore the law, then you'll be charged that.
Now, how are retailers responding to this? Because obviously it's going to be a little bit more work on the part of the cashiers trying to count how many bags have been paid for. So how are retailers responding?
Well, from the large chains, they've done this before, because many of the stores that are the larger chains are already doing it in the District of Columbia and other jurisdictions as well. So they are a little bit more familiar with it. It is the small mom and pop stores that have to make the most difficult adjustments. And so this is where we are concentrating a great deal of our efforts, the small retailers.
Okay. When we come back, we're going to take up on another subject, which is the teen curfew. Let's get an update on that, but first we're going to take a small break. We'll be right back with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett, Lorna Virgili, one-on-one interview. Welcome back to 101 with County Executive Ike Leggett. I'm Lorna Virgili. Mr. Leggett, we're talking about the new carry-out bag tax law that enters into effect at the beginning of next year. Now, let's switch a little bit to the teen curfew. This is a measure you proposed several months ago. It's now been in County Council. What is the latest going on the other side of the street here across from the Executive Office building? Well,
we're still waiting on the council to act on the bill, and hopefully they'll do so in the very, very near future. But in addition to that, I think the council has now recognized that there is a problem and a concern. And some council members, at least one council member, has introduced a measure that will address, I think, part of the concern. It's a loitering law, one that I think is somewhat troubling in many ways. First of all, this is a law that has been really very much reputed in most jurisdictions around the country. It follows a sort of a model criminal code legislation that was suggested going back as early as 1962. And in that period of time, only 2 jurisdictions have adopted something similar to that, that is Georgia and Florida. Not the model of communities that I think that Montgomery County should necessarily follow without some level of scrutiny. Well, in any event, we are now looking at a law offered by some council members that in many ways, in part, had been already rejected by the same council members many years ago. For those people who are concerned, and there are some concern, but I don't have that same level of concern, that this is the curfew bill may provide some level of profiling. This law certainly will be that on steroids, because it has no guidelines whatsoever. It applies across the board, and it is something that has not been utilized in hardly any jurisdiction, so the police do not have a great deal of utilization of this law. Whereas in the curfew, we have the curfew in probably 80% or 80% of the jurisdictions around the country. It is something that people are familiar with, and it works. In addition to that, one of the things that I've tried to emphasize with the curfew law is that it would actually get young people off the street. And that's the huge benefit for us, that after curfew hours, young people should be off the street, with the exception of those that fall within the exceptions. This law does not address that. It does not address the challenge that we see of young people coming in from the District of Columbia and from Prince George's County, where you have curfew laws. And it applies across the board at any point in time. So I don't think that this is the direction you should go in. Even if you had some questions about the curfew, this is a terrible law that has been rejected. There are legal problems across the board, and it's open to huge levels of lawsuits that I think the council should clearly reject. This is not something we should do. If you have questions about the curfew, then let's address that, but not with this kind of a law that I think is beneath Montgomery County.
Now, some of the people that, of course, oppose this teen curfew have argued that recently, because of the increased police patrolling in areas like Silver Spring, for instance, well, teen activity has decreased to a certain level. And they argue, well, there's no need. If you have more police, there's no need to have a teen curfew.
Well, let's take the recommendation of the police department, because it was through the police department that I made the recommendation to significantly increase the level of police presence in Silver Spring and some of the other urban areas of the county. We've done that at a fairly high price, and we can't simply afford to replicate that in many other areas throughout the county. Secondly, we don't want to wait until there is a more significant problem to then try to introduce this measure to deal with this. So if you accept the recommendation of the police in terms of how to address this to begin with, to reduce it as it relates to greater funding for several areas, then why reject the same recommendation from the police who say we also need a curfew? Those things are not mutually exclusive. Those are two things that should be done together. That is, we should have a greater emphasis on crime, which is part of the plan that I have. We should have a curfew, which is part of the plan that I have. And we should also have the Positive Youth Initiative, which we should fund appropriately as well. I think that's a lame excuse to suggest to not do it because you have a brief downtick in crime based on some fairly high significant prices that we're paying in order to get there, and then reject the same police advice that got you there, got you those positive results in the first place.
Talking about the Positive Youth Initiative, the federal grants that will expire next year, especially for gang prevention and violence, how is that going to possibly be funded?
Well, it's going to be very difficult, and given the challenge that we have at the state level and local level here at the county, those are some of the challenges that we have. This is why I want to make certain that we have all these other components in place as well, because we very well may lose some of the funding that we've had for gang initiatives, that we've had for positive youth initiatives overall, and this is why I would like to have the curfew in place, as well as trying to beef up some of the overall police size and force. We have a plan on the books right now, a master plan, to increase the police force by 250 additional officers. We have nowhere near that increase. I want to do that. That's part of our plan to do that, but we also need to have this teen curfew as well.
Let's switch topic here for a little bit. Recently, you were testifying in Annapolis, and you talked about the challenges of transportation overall in the region, but especially in Montgomery County. Gas tax. It was not in your remarks. You didn't mention it, but is that something that you would support or not?
Well, I thought I mentioned it indirectly in terms of a question that was asked of me. The question was asked, would you support it? And my response was that I've been supporting this for the last 6 years. People may recall when I ran for county executive, I was highly criticized at that point in time for advocating a gas tax. I believed in it then, and I believe in it now. It's really nothing more than a user tax for people who are utilizing the roads and the transportation network that we have throughout this county and state. Think about it. Our transportation trust fund is very low. Our highway user dollars are very low because we simply have not kept a pace. We're trying to maintain the index for the increase in gasoline and the needs to repair our roads. It's a huge problem for us in the state of Maryland. And I think had we acted at the time that I suggested 6 years ago, we would have been far ahead of the curve. Now what we must do, we must increase the tax even higher. The cost to repair those same roads and the transit system that we have is going to cost more. And so we're going to get less now in terms of our dollars. Had we acted earlier, I think we could have prevented that problem. If we don't act now, then that problem simply will continue to increase. There is no other alternative out there that I've seen that is more viable than increasing the gasoline tax. If there is, please come forward with that, because we cannot continue to have the level of economic development that we want in this state and the county unless we tackle the challenges of transportation. So this is one alternative. If there are others out there, please come forward. But right now, I think the best option for us is an increase in the gasoline tax.
How much are we talking about percentage-wise, and how much would it generate that would actually come to Montgomery County at some point or not?
Well, we don't know the amount that would come to Montgomery County. This is why I've said two things about the tax. One, we should not have the tax unless we understand what the tax would actually get us in terms of the projects. So you'd have a list of projects that are in the queue. Secondly, the gasoline tax must in fact be walled off. That is, that it must be in a lockbox, if you will, and you cannot utilize it for other resources that the state may need at a point in time. So it must be a dedicated tax, and it must provide us with some level of what that tax will get. So depending on the amount that you have, from 5 to say, for example, 15 cents, and you've had variations of that, I think that you could get several $100 million back into the trust fund very easily.
Okay, we're going to take a small, short break, and we'll be right back with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett. Welcome back to 101 with County Executive Ike Leggett. I'm Lauren Virgili. Thank you, sir. I promise this is the last draw. We're here for another 10 minutes and we'll be done. Let's talk about still fall. Leaves have not been collected. They're going to start collecting on November 7th. But let's talk about winter. Wintertime preparations for the winter. There's going to be Snow Summit on the 2nd of November, correct? And how ready are we as far as funding for whatever Mother Nature brings on board this year?
Well, first of all, we increased the budget last year to put in a higher amount of resources for snow and winter storms. In the past, that had not been a dedicated fund for that. We simply drew down our reserves at the end of the year. So we are anticipating a more stable source of revenues to deal with winter storms. Secondly, the Department of Transportation, under the direction of Director Art Holmes, they've had a series of programs and summits that they've conducted over the years since I've been county executive. And what that is designed to do is to make certain that we are prepared to deal with the storms. That is, to ensure that our drivers, our staff, our communications link, and all the people that feed into the operations during the storm are in fact well prepared. And the way you prepare for that is practice. The way you prepare for that is have the resources, the contracts, and all the preparations in advance, because once the storm hits, you cannot at that point in time start your operations. You must have that in place and have the plan ready to be implemented. Now, my hope is that all the preparations we go through, all the funding that we put in place, that we don't have to utilize it. But we want to be safe, we want to be sure, and so we are preparing. We're preparing for the usual eventualities that we have here in Montgomery County. And over the last few years, we've had a huge level of storms. Keep in mind that we've had 2 or 3 ice storms, snow at historic proportions. We've had hurricanes. We've had not just one earthquake here, we've had 2 earthquakes. We had wind damage. We've had ice. We've had all of that. I mentioned some time ago that if we were hit by locusts invading the county of biblical proportions, I probably would believe it, because everything else has happened in this county. And so we're trying to prepare for it, and I think that we are. Last year,
this past winter, one of the coolest gadgets that the department implemented was the online access to see how the plows were actually plowing street by street, so you could actually see that. Is there anything more technologically advanced this year that's going to be implemented for the residents to be up to date regarding when are they going to plow my street?
No, but I think what we are doing with the system is to better improve it, so that we're working more carefully with the state. We're working with some of the utility companies, and we're working with all the stakeholders so that we can provide even more information. I'm not sure that we'll have it all ready for this winter, but we are working to provide as much information as possible, because with that information, people can have enough information to make the informed decisions that they need, whether to go out, when the roads are plowed, what are the challenges related to roads that are distant from them. You can follow much of this also by connecting to the county cameras throughout the region and look at this in almost real time so that you can understand what the conditions are out there. Once you know that, you can make informed decisions, because the worst thing that we want is for people going out on the roads when the roads have not been plowed, thereby creating additional headaches for us and people having some level of certainty. This information is readily available, and we hope to provide even additional information to ensure that citizens are well informed about the conditions that they face.
Let's talk about now the big box stores. Some people think that Walmart is spreading throughout Montgomery County. They're talking Kensington and also Rockville Pike. What is the difference between the two jurisdictions, and is it necessary to have two Walmarts in such close proximity in the county?
Well, that's a business decision for Walmarts in terms of whether or not it's business wise to have them in such proximity to each other. But the way we look at that are twofold. Number one, the one that is being discussed now for the Twin Brook, Rockville area is one that is already approved by right. There are some questions about traffic and some of the other conditions that must be looked at there, but that's one that is permitted by right. The other one that we're looking at is really in Aspen Hill. And if that one goes through, it must go through because there's a change in the zoning requirements that would permit that to happen. And so we'll have a great deal of discussion with the community about whether that should go forward. Keep in mind that the site that they are looking at is a site now that's designed for office. There's no viable office location there. Therefore, the county is actually losing money because the property has significantly depreciated in value. So in order to get the appreciation of the property back up to receive the tax dollars that the county needs, you must have some type of viable operation there. There's no way, shape, or form that future office space will be utilized there to any significant part. So in order for us to enhance the economic development, the tax base, then we must find another use for it. Walmart is simply another option. We'd have to see whether or not that is compatible with the community once we go through the zoning process. The one on Rockville Pike is already one there by right. There are some other questions that are there, and the council is looking at that to see whether or not they want to make some changes to that. But right now, it has a matter of right to go there. But the question overall in terms of Walmart should not be a question about Walmart, because I think that's sort of discriminatory in a way. It should be about all large retailers and all big boxes to see whether or not they are compatible for the community. That's a test that we should have them go through, and if they are compatible, then I think they should go forward. If they meet the zoning requirements, they should go forward. But
is part of the process going to be them giving back to the community in some sort of form? Well,
we already do that. We do that through the land use process. There are amenities that you already have to provide for any development. For example, if there's a housing development that generates a certain amount of trips, there are traffic mitigation things that they must do. If there's a housing development that provides for additional kids coming in, you got to provide land for schools or other things that you need to do for the community. Likewise with the retail component, there are things that you must do. So that's already part of the land use process. I think what is being asked now is something in addition to that that I think may be somewhat troubling, but we have to look at that to see how that would actually work. But many large developments in the county right now must provide those amenities as part of the land use process and the rezoning process that you go through.
We have just about 1 more minute left of the show, but I wanted to squeeze this question in real quick. The county recently just hosted the first Homeless Resource Day. About 1,100 homeless persons in Montgomery County, an increase 6% from last year. Is that a concern?
Yes, a concern. There was an increase. A concern that we have so many people who need the services. It is concerned that we continue to have this economic downturn, and there are people out there that really, really need the help and the support that the county and the private sector has provided. I think on the success side is that it was well organized. It was well managed from the standpoint of the county, and I think people received the help that they needed. But the real problem is to ensure that we have fewer people seeking the resources in the first place. And until we do that, then we still have a challenge. And I think it's a failure that we have 6% more people this year than last year seeking support because they are either homeless or near homeless and need the help and support that the various components of our community have provided. We did this in conjunction with the City of Gaithersburg and Mayor Katz and others. They provided a huge amount of support, and we could not have done it without them. It was well organized by our staff here in Montgomery County, and I think from that standpoint it was a success. But it was also a failure, the fact that we have so many people in need of such assistance.
Well, Mr. Leggett, the time always flies when we sit here and talk and address what's going on in Montgomery County. You said at the beginning it's been a little busy, and it continues to be. So yeah. Thank you again so much for granting this interview, and we'll see you again next month.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching 101 with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett. I'm Lorna Virgili, and for more information, visit montgomerycountymd.gov. Thank you.